Hello, welcome back. We are going to talk about and work on our pelvic floor a little bit today. I'm going to work on just a couple things. It'll be breathing, posture. We'll work on a little bit of strengthening, and I'll show you some relaxing poses as well. If you're like me and tend to be a belly sucker and always keeping our cores held tight, we can have tight pelvic floors. Or if you need to strengthen more, I'll show you some poses that will help with that. These poses are so simple. I think they can be really effective if you practice them. Really, you can do them anytime. You can do the breathing exercises in any poses. So as I was researching this, I was learning a little bit about our pelvic floor, which we obviously know our pelvic floor is part of our core muscles. Strengthen, hold us up. The pelvic floor also supports several of our internal organs, and it helps control bladder and bowel function. It is not one muscle, but it's a whole sheet of muscles. It stretches from hip to hip and from pubic bone to tailbone. So there's a lot going on in there. Some of the things that affect our pelvic floor is posture. I mean, if you think about it and you're tucking your tail or out too much, you're flexing that back too much, you cock one hip one way or the other, that's going to throw off your entire pelvic floor because your where those muscles are attached is off. Breathing, and I mentioned before, if you're sucking in your belly all the time, that can affect your pelvic floor because you're pulling muscles in ways that maybe they not equally or strengthening. So what I would like to show you today is some really simple, effective things you can do. If when I say engage or anything like that, if you are not feeling that engagement in your pelvic floor, that's okay. Your intention is that. So if you keep working on it and you keep practicing, you're creating those neural pathways in your brain. So just stick with it, and maybe one day you will feel that engagement. And if not, I think that these things that can be really effective at supporting us, whether you feel like they are or not. So let's get started. First of all, I'm going to show you real quick a way we can do this breathing exercise and posture to help with our pelvic floor, and then I'll jump into some poses. But to start, so posture. If you are, say, just standing in your Tadasana, standing in line, whatever you're doing, you want to stack your bones, okay? Stack, stack, stack. Soften your belly. That's hard for me. I'm an automatic belly sucker, so I really have to think about it. Soften your belly. Don't walk out on your knees. Feet, ankles, under your hips. Now breathe into your ribs. Feel your ribs expand and contract. Feel strong in your posture. Find that softness, but that steadiness, that stability. Breathe into your ribs. Everything's equal here, equal weight, pressing equally into our feet. Ribs expanding and contracting. Now, so to add the breathing component, we've been doing the breathing into the ribs, exhale. This time, as you exhale, take a big deep breath, breathing into all sides of the ribs. Think about breathing into the back ribs, side ribs, front ribs. And as you exhale here, make a ha sound. As you do that, see if you notice the engagement in your core. You may feel it in your pelvic muscles. Think about drawing everything here up and in. Think about stopping urine if you have to stop peeing. Contracting everything. So breathe into the ribs. Exhale, think about the core contracting in, drawing up and in. Like you're stopping pee, So you can do this. You can do this in any pose. You can do this at any time. Just, it's one of those things, be mindful of your posture, pressing equally into your feet, soft knees, soft belly as we breathe in. And as we do our poses and our exercises, the strengthening and relaxing, it's going to be using your breath is going to be what we are doing to strengthen or relax our pelvic floor. The poses are great and assist us in that, but it's going to 100% be our breath. So what we're going to do, we're going to start with strengthening poses. I only have 3 simple poses you can do. I say simple, you're going to hold them for 10 breaths. So, which can be a challenge for somebody. Do the best you can. But as we're doing these, I want you to think about breathing into your ribs. And as you exhale, think about stopping urine. Think about drawing everything up and in as we do these poses. I'm going to show you how to get into the pose. I'll do a couple breaths with you, and then I will slowly come out, and you can pause the video. You can do whatever you need to do. Just try and see if you can get at least 10 breaths in on the pose. If you want to do a little more, you can. It's up to you. But to start for the strengthening, we're going to start in our tabletop pose. So stack your bones. You're going to be wrists under your shoulders. Make sure your knees are under your hips. And then we're going to come down to our elbows. And you can take your elbows a little wide here if you want. And you're going to come down to your head. So you think puppy posture, but the difference is here, we're not dropping our belly. We're going to keep length in the spine. You're going to curl your toes under. This helps to activate all the muscles we want to activate. And you're going to take a deep breath in. As you breathe in, think about breathing into your side and back ribs. When you breathe out, just start a normal breath out. You're going to contract towards the end of the breath. So breathing in, exhale, you can think about the start to contract, drawing everything up and in, pressing into our toes, keeping length in our spine. Inhale, think about softening, relaxing. As you exhale, think about lengthening the spine, everything drawing up and in. We're giving it an assist to the bowl of our pelvis to help draw it up and in by dropping our head below our hearts. Breathe into your back and side ribs. Exhale, natural breath. You don't have to push the breath out and engage really hard. Think 50% engagement. Again, think about stopping urine if that imagery helps with you. So you're going to do that at least 10 breaths, and then when you're ready, you'll slowly come out. It's very important to keep the toes curled and pressing into the toes in that pose. It helps to activate all our muscles here that we need to get the proper activation and strengthening. One of our other poses is down dog. So we all know down dog. The difference in, well, most of us know down dog. The difference in this down dog is going to be you're going to spread your hands wide. You can take them a little wider than the mat, the edges of your mat, whatever feels best for you. So play in these poses to find where you can get the engagement without really struggling through the pose. Keeping length in the spine is important. Pressing into our toes was important in that one pose. So for our down dog, you're going to come into your down dog from tabletop. You can lift your hips. Take your arms wide. And it's going to be the same thing here. You're going to let your head just hang. Shoulders are spread wide. And it's the same breathing technique. Inhaling into the sides and backs of our ribs. Think long spine. As you exhale, if it helps, drawing up and in. Feeling our pelvic floor muscles. See if you can feel that. If not, it's okay.
Just have that intention in your mind. Create those connections in the brain. So if holding this traditional down dog here is difficult for you, and it is, that's a rough pose to hold for 10 breaths for a lot of people. So something you can do, the most important thing in this pose is to have your head below your hips. So again, we're letting gravity assist with pulling those muscles up as you draw them in. So you're letting gravity help you out here, which is amazing. You can take a chair. I'm going to use my bench chair because it's here. Take a chair and you can just rest your arms on it. Make sure you're long in the spine. Arms are wide. Make sure your head is below your hips. Inhale into your side and back ribs, pressing evenly into our feet. Exhale. We don't have to push our breath out. Let it naturally finish, if that makes sense. Don't force it out, just let it naturally finish. And you're going to do that for 10 breaths. So you're here, or you're here, keeping the spine long. Inhaling, thinking about softening everything. Exhaling, thinking about pressing away, lengthening, and drawing our core muscles up and in. Perfect. Now, I'm going to come down here, release that nice and slow. Take a break off your shoulders if you need to. You can do some shoulder circles if that feels good. Ooh, I'm really close to the wall here. One more strengthening pose, and then I'll show you some quick relaxation poses, which are amazing because we're going to use the wall. I love assists. So for our last strengthening pose, we're going to come into a bridge pose. It's going to be a half bridge, and you're going to hold it for 10 breaths. So we're going to come to our backs. Really lengthen through your spine. Press into both feet evenly. You don't want your heels too far away. You can walk them close. You can have them, but you want your feet in line with your hips here. You can press into have your arms, palms pressing into the ground. And then when you're ready, you're going to inhale, roll up from the tailbone. And you're only going to lift about halfway, and you're going to stay here. Keep pressing evenly into your feet. Now, before we come up, I want you pressing into I say evenly into your feet. That's a normal bridge. I apologize. Press into your heels. If you need to lift your feet off the ground and press into your heels, see if you can do that. If that is really uncomfortable and doesn't feel stable for you because you're going to hold this for 10 breaths, then you can have your feet on the ground and toes lifted, pressing into the heels. Make sure your heels are getting most of the pressure and weight. Or you can just have your toes down, but make sure you're pressing into your heels. So whatever feels best. And you may play in the pose again, like it feels weird for me to be too close and come up. So you can walk your heels out. And you're going to come up halfway. And you're going to inhale, breathing into the ribs. As you exhale, drawing everything up and in. Think about, I'm going to put my feet down, that is some work right there. Think about drawing everything up and in, stopping pee. Breathing into all sides of the ribs. Letting the breath finish naturally. Softening on that inhale. Breathing. Focus on your breath. Focus on that exhale and drawing everything up and in. And after your 10 breaths, you're just going to roll it slowly down. You can rock your knees from side to side if that feels good. It's one of my favorites after bridge. And then, so those are your 3 strengthening. And honestly, you can do that breathing and that engagement
in really any pose if you want to think about it. Those three I like because you have the assistive gravity to help you, so you're not having to engage so much, which sometimes isn't always the best, right? Like little movements, little bits can go a very long way if we stick with it and continue to practice, because that's what this is, right? So for our next poses, I highly suggest grabbing a blanket for our very last pose for sure. You can use it for these first relaxing poses that we're going to do on the wall. Couple of things that I want you to be aware of. We want to do all these poses. There's a couple poses we're going to do. You're going to have to switch legs. So you want to do 2 minutes on each side. And then we'll do a legs up the wall pose on the blanket for 10 to 15 minutes if you have time. We won't do it in the video, but I highly suggest doing it, staying in that. That's one of the best poses you can do before bed. It's amazing, really relaxing. So who wouldn't want to end their day with that, right? So we're gonna start, if you've never done any yoga on the wall, I'm gonna be careful here, but one of the important things is you're gonna turn sideways and very carefully bring your legs up the wall. But something I want you to think about here, and if you're comfortable doing this, some people may or may not be, as you have your legs up the wall, I want you to think about, I told you your pelvic muscles go from hip to hip, pubic bone to tailbone. So when you're in these poses, even when you have your legs crossed or whatever, you want your hips and your pubic bone to be level. So if you're comfortable putting your fingers on your pubic bone, putting your finger on your hip bone, just to make sure, then do that and play around until you can get level, because that is where that relaxation is going to come in. So we will start, come to your side, bring your hip, whichever hip is best for you, closest to the wall. You're gonna lay back and just bring your legs up the wall. Just like that, okay? So our first pose we're going to do is going to be a pigeon variation at the wall. So for this, you may want to scoot further away. And again, you're going to have to play with how far and close you're going to be in order to get your pubic bone and your hips level. So you're going to cross one ankle over the thigh, over whichever foot's on the wall. Keep your feet active. Or keep that foot slightly active. And again, you're going to breathe into your ribs. Exhale. You can, if you don't want that foot flat on the wall, you can also have that leg lifted and cross that foot over. Again, check your pubic and hip bone level, make sure they're even, so we get the full relaxation. And you're going to stay here and you're going to breathe. And you're going to do this for 2 minutes. If you have to set a timer, or you could approach this the same way as the strengthening poses if you want, and that is at least 10 breaths. If you can do 10 minutes, even better. So you're going to do 2 minutes each side in your modified pigeon pose. Again, if you always need to check and see, adjusting hips, how far away your tailbone is away from the wall. If you're on a blanket, it may be different. So you're 2 minutes on each side. And then from there, what we'll do is we'll move into it's like a cow legs on the wall. So you're going to cross, you can put your feet on the wall, and if you can stack your knees, great. If you can keep your ankles level, great. Make sure pubic bone and hip are level. You're gonna hear me say that so many times over the next couple poses. And it may look like this. It may look like this. So you play around and find what works best for you. You're going to do the breathing. Just make sure you're breathing into your ribs. You can take cactus arms if you want. That feels good in my chest. So if that feels good for you, there you go.
2 minutes each side. Big, full rib cage breathing. You switch sides, and each side is gonna be different, and that's okay. And they're gonna feel probably vastly different. And see if you can just let your body sink and relax into the floor. Let your spine relax into the floor. We don't wanna, try and get comfortable here. That's what we want, comfort. So you're gonna do 2 minutes each side here, full big deep breaths into the rib cage. And then when you're ready, we'll find our way to a frog on the wall. So what that's gonna look like, take your feet, again, you're gonna have to adjust here. And you're gonna take your knees out wide. You're gonna turn your feet out and see if you can get your ankles and your knees in line. Just scoot further away. There we go. And if that's like, ooh, bomba, bring your knees in a little. Line up those ankles and knees. Frog on the wall, pubic bone, hip bones level. Breathe here. This is 2 minutes. Rib cage breathing. Let your belly relax. Inhale, soften. And then after 2 minutes, this one is one of my favorites. You can do this next one in bed. You can do it anywhere, really. I suggest taking a blanket, a rolled up towel, a small pillow, couch cushion. I don't know, get creative, guys. You can use whatever you want. And we're gonna come to legs up the wall. So slide your blanket under your hips because it just feels yummy. Again, at the risk of sounding redundant, hip and pubic bone level, guys. Feet up the wall. Honestly, if you can do this an hour to 2 hours before bed, it's super, super good to release all that stuff that's pooling in our legs if we've been standing all day. Brings it all up in, gets filtered. And you're gonna just breathe here. You can take the legs a little wider in a V. Again, this isn't one of those poses. You play, not one of the poses, all poses. I say play in the pose, small movements, small, just play in engagement, pulling, our hip creases back a little bit in our lunges. All of those small things, playing there until you can find where it is that it's going to feel best in your body, because we're all so different. I can cue you all day long, but it's your practice, it's up to you. I'll give you cues to guide you, but you still find your yoga. That's what I love about yoga. So you're gonna be here. If you can do this 10 to 15 minutes, I would stay here that long. If not, that's okay. Stay here as long as you can. Feet hip width apart, feet wider. If you have a sandbag or you have something heavy like a bag of rice or something, you can activate your feet a little bit and put it on your feet if you want a little more stretch back here. That's up to you. To come out, just slowly bend your knees, roll onto your side, and slowly come up to seated. So those are the main things I have about pelvic floor. Those are the most useful and informative things I could find in my studies of the pelvic floor. If there's more that you guys want to know, I'll happily dive deeper. I love doing that.
If you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, I hope that this video is really helpful for you. And if there's anything you guys want to see more of, or any requests, just let me know as well. I love you guys. Thank you for being here. Namaste.